The Grit and Green Podcast by Ducklander Fall Company.
So, welcome to the first episode of Grit and Green. So, last year's podcast was just called the Ducklander Podcast. This year, I've moved it to Grit and Green, and I brought in my buddy Kyle Bauer. For those of you that don't know him, pretty much Kyle and I hunt together about almost every day of the season now, or close to it.
Yeah.
So, this is the standard podcast of this is what the podcast is going to be about. Kind of one you got to get through before the actual podcast goes up fully. So it's just what it is. So nothing.
Just kind of explaining what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So this podcast is going to be a little different from the first podcast I did. One, because I know a little bit more about what I'm doing with it. The other one was a little rough. This one, you can see we got a little better backdrop, a little better lights, and everything is a little smoother. I know, like I said, I know a little more about what's going on. So, but this is basically going to be a verbal and video idea of what I post on social. So a lot of the topics are going to kind of roll in the same genre, which anybody that follows my social, which I assume if you're watching this, you probably follow my social. If not, you should.
Ducklander Call Company.
I like to post a lot of long form content on social that gets people thinking about the culture of waterfowl hunting, so I don't just cram calls down your throat on there. So this podcast is going to reflect that. So I brought Kyle in on this, so you're not just listening to me babble for an hour every other week. But
There's a lot of thoughts that go through, and a lot of stuff comes out, a lot of stuff doesn't. So,
well, honestly, when I make those long form posts, a lot of times I talk to Kyle about them, but I don't tell him specifically that I'm thinking about making this post. Yeah. I just hash ideas out with him. And there's a couple other guys I do that same thing with, but I mostly do that with Kyle. And so it's pretty fitting to bring him in.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it.
So I've known Kyle for, it's getting so long now I got to actually think about it.
I know. I got it. It's 25?
I was in the garage at the other house.
2010-ish?
Yeah, because I've been here this February is 5 years here. So
yeah, so that would have been, because I'm just trying to think of when I was, going down south to work at the time, and I'd stop by my way home. So yeah, like 2010-ish.
Yeah, it's been something like that.
There.
So it's been a while.
Yeah.
So Kyle and I met. I don't know if you guys remember this, but Falls used to have a big contest and a big show at his shop in Pittsfield, and Kyle was actually staffing for Beavertail at the time.
Yep.
And he came up wanting to know if I'd help teach him how to run a duck call, and then he started to come over to my house for calling classes, and that's how we got acquainted.
Yeah, because you handed me your business card, and it said Olathe, and I didn't realize you were in Olathe at the time. So I looked at it, I'm like, oh, you're in Olathe? Yeah, I'm like, can I just come by the shop? And just the ease of doing that at the time, because social it was big, it was growing, but it wasn't what it's at. So it was just, that's how it started.
I may have my time span off on the social, but social has changed so much. Like, I don't know when my Facebook page was started. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I was YouTube first, and then, because I think that was out first.
Yeah.
But I was on YouTube, I think, long before Facebook.
Yeah, because YouTube is kind of what, not to jump ahead or around, but like that's kind of what got your name out there first, because everybody looked at your videos.
Well, that's what I said. That's what I was going to say. I kind of made my bones in the calling space originally because of call instructional videos on YouTube. Because when I put those up there, like if you go back and look at them, I'd have to look on there to see exactly. I think it says 10, 12, 14 years ago now. It's been a long time. But I was much younger looking when I did those.
A lot less gray.
Yeah. But there wasn't much of that on there.
No.
So we had I had moved from,
there was stuff on there, but it was just a guy, it'd be somebody like sitting in their chair, just blowing notes and explaining how to do it. It wasn't the nice background and it wasn't professionally produced.
Yeah. So if you go back that far, I think I made 3 DVDs.
Yeah.
And then on the 4th one, instead of making, this is how long ago this was DVD era. We were still filming with tapes.
Mhm.
when I made those DVDs. Uh, the little mini DVR. They were DVR. Anyway, little mini tapes. But that's what the cameras took. But I think the fourth season, which would have been the fourth DVD, actually went onto YouTube, and then I put the calling instructionals on there, which is just basic: how to quack, how to feed, how to make
Yep.
air pressure, real basic. But so I kind of made my bones with those
Yeah.
YouTube videos, and I did a ton of calling classes out of the shop that I had at the time, which was my garage in my little house.
And one of the smaller garages because I'd almost hit my head on the track.
That garage was 400 square foot, so that's the size of the call shop at the time. And I had calling classes in there until I filled it with too much equipment that I couldn't fit people in there anymore.
Yeah.
And we couldn't do it outside because it was in a neighborhood.
Yeah.
So that's what. Yeah, we were in that shop for 15 years. 14,
So what?
15 years.
2004.
I started in 04 because last year was 20 years.
So that was 2004. So that was and when did you move out here again?
Would have been year of Rona, so 21. I think Rona
20.
started 20.
Yeah, 19 to 20.
We moved in February, and then Rona started.
Yeah, so February of 20. So that's what, 16 years?
Yeah. So regardless, we've been hunting together for a long time.
2010.
Yeah. So I brought Kyle in on this. Like I said, I thought maybe it'd be better to have another voice on this instead of listening to me babble for an hour or so every other week. And Kyle's got a lot of good perspectives on things. It is kind of nice. So I am fully in the hunting industry because this is all I do for a living. So I make duck calls and I duck hunt. That's how I make all my money. So Kyle is not in the hunting industry. He's in the construction industry, but he's around the hunting industry a lot. So he still has a little bit of an outside perspective on it. So sometimes it's good to get outside of things to see it clearly.
It's nice to have that network around us to get the ideas because, you may get 10 bad ideas, but you get a couple of them that are decent in there and you can put everything together and come up with something pretty solid.
Well,
or perspectives, I should say.
And this may surprise a lot of you. I am not super social.
No.
So,
well, really, since you got out here, you kind of...
Yeah. So if I didn't have a call company, I wouldn't be on social media. So that's kind of how I look at social media, because if I didn't have a call company, I wouldn't be on there because there's not a lot on social media that interests me. So when I create posts and content, I try to create it from the idea of like, would this interest me enough to go to the page?
A single point of perspective.
Yeah. So I put a lot of thought into the content. It's not just content that's thrown up, because like I said, that doesn't do much for me when I see it. So what I was getting at though is Kyle is very social. So Kyle kind of keeps me on the loops on things because he's been around so long. He talks to a lot of the same industry guys that I do. I just don't Snapchat people every day. I don't do that stuff.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I post on social and I go away and I go back to making calls.
Yeah, and the phone gets put away, and sometimes it takes 3 or 4 or 5 hours or 5 days to get here back.
So,
but you got a business to run and a family support, so I get, people got to understand that too. But
you want to tell them what topics we're going to cover in the upcoming podcast, Kyle, on Grit and Green?
Yeah. So on the Grit and Green podcast, it's going to be on YouTube. So like, share, subscribe, leave comments. But some of the stuff we're going to talk about is gear, really gear related, because that seems to be a topic. I mean, it's kind of it's a lot of the stuff that we talk about when we're out hunting. Just like different stuff that works and what doesn't, and what's, there's stuff that Bob uses that doesn't fit me and vice versa. So we're going to talk about that. Calling, because that's originally why I started coming around, is to get calling lessons, and then, different tactics and tips, tricks, how to work birds, stuff like that. So, rather than keeping that a secret, let's raise the floor on the, the average hunter that hunts maybe 10 times a year, doesn't have the ability to go work with an outfitter or go hunt with an outfitter or anything like that. So going to talk about that. Different ways Bobby uses ducklander calls on social media to promote, show different stuff that he's got in the works. Yeah. So, cause there's some really, really cool stuff coming. Some of those calls that you made, the limited releases, and yeah, it's going to be exciting to watch that stuff get released.
Yeah, like for instance, this is not a call plug by any means, 'cause- but so I do a hand turn run of calls every year, and they're the Bobby Hayes Select calls, so they're kind of branded differently than the regular ones, and they're all hand turned, traditional materials, and they're painted and string wrapped. They're special, so they're themed every year. So for the last 2 years, I've done vintage shotguns. So basically,
Yep.
historic shotguns that made a difference in waterfowl hunting. So like right off the bat, you have Remington number 11 or the Browning A5, same gun, right? But I mean, that gun changed the way market hunters shot ducks because it was an autoloader and it was such a dependable gun. So that was one of those in that series. So this year, you may have noticed on social, I posted the first call, which was the 1918, which is the year that the Federal Migratory Bird Act passed, which is effectively the year they shut down market hunting. And it set the base for most of the game laws we had today. So that call brings attention to the beginning of the laws that set how we waterfowl hunt today. So the whole series of calls this year will be themed in that way.
The different actual laws that changed it, not events like the ideas I started throwing at you.
Oh no, that
Yeah,
was fine.
but-
That's actually a good idea, just not in this series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
no, I didn't hate it at all. Yeah,
yeah.
that was actually a great idea.
So, yeah, that, and then here coming up this summer, the summit. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But you know, and if there's anything you guys want our opinions or ideas on, feel free to comment, send a direct message to either of us. You know how to get old Bobby at Ducklander Call Company, or me. I'm on or Instagram because I don't have Facebook. Is KB5904. Shoot me a DM. Make a comment on a post or something, and we'll get it fit in where we can. So that's kind of the general idea background. So I don't know. You want to talk about the calling contest more, or
Yeah. So every year since we've moved in here, except for the first year of Rona, maybe
Yeah.
the second year. So maybe I didn't say that right. I think this is the fourth summit. I think last year was the third. So every year I have an event at the shop.
No,
and
this
basically-
is going to be the third because I was at the first one. The second one I couldn't make
Okay.
because the first one I was cooking hot dogs on your porch.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one, basically, we had a summit, Ducklander Summit, and that was
2022.
the grand opening of the call shop.
Correct.
Yeah. So I don't think we did it the first year because Rona was going. So I think we did it in the second year. 'cause
You
everybody
did a
was
soft
sick.
one. You just said you were doing an open house, but
Yeah.
it just kind of
So anyway, this year, Ducklander Summit is on May 31st. So it's an open house. We'll have TC Bolding will be up here. For
Yep.
those of you that followed us, he has taken over tuning of all the goose calls, and he's also starting to take over design on the goose calls. That kid is absolutely a killer on geese.
great
so
kid.
he will be here because we're going to release all the new goose calls. A lot of you guys have been asking me when I'm going to have goose calls back on the site, so they will be ready to go for the show on May 31st. And last year we had the calling contest. So we had the Kansas City calling contest, which is the Grand Slam calling contest.
Yeah, but it's the Kansas Regional, isn't it?
Well, that is one of
Or
the
was-
contests inside the Grand Slam calling
Yeah,
contest.
okay.
So it's actually the Grand Slam calling contest. So, but I have taken over that contest, so it is now, this is its home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe, I got to look at the sheet that I do graphics constantly. So I get more designs and yeah, like I'm going to tell you what, I spend more time on the computer than I spend on a lathe by far.
Yeah.
By far, I look at graphics so much.
I mean, not to bring it up, but like, everybody, for those that golf, there's always a story going around like Tiger Woods texting people like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm in the gym. I get random text messages at 1 a.m. Look at this when you wake up. Or when he's up at 4 or 5, I'll wake up to 2 or 3 texts of, hey, look at this graphic.
Yeah.
Is it missing something?
I start a lot of
So-
times I'm in the call shop and I start work about 3 to 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I look at a lot of graphics, so I may have this confused in my head, but it'll be on, it'll be posted tomorrow. I'm building the web page for it. That's what I was doing this morning at 4 o'clock, was building the web page for the summit and the calling contest. But so there is, I believe there's 3 regionals. There's 2 Kansas regionals, and then there's the Western Missouri. I think that's the open.
I believe so.
Yeah, and then this year, instead of having a regular meet, there'll be the 2-man meet contest, and then there's a kids calling contest. So all that'll be at the shop, and that's its new home. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's going to be. Sorry, I couldn't make it last year. I was golfing.
Yeah,
but
and the callers have all been great. They've been super respectful, bunch of nice guys. So, but you can just come hang out. The call shop's open. You can talk to us. You can listen to them contest call. If you got any questions about contest calling, those guys are always happy to help you. If you just want to learn how to run a duck call, you're welcome to come into the shop.
Yep.
You don't have to participate with the calling contest style, but I guarantee you all those guys can run the dogs out of a duck call.
There is no doubt about it.
Yeah. So
yeah, the Grand Slayer, you know, I mean, and I don't know about any other topics or comments. We got a laundry list of stuff, but like I said, if there's anything you guys want to like or hear, get on YouTube, make a comment, shoot us a DM, text, however you guys want to get a hold of us.
Yeah. So just to go over it one more time.
Yeah.
So the last year's podcast, I think that ran 1 year, maybe it was 2. It was on Spotify and Apple and all the different, but I'll be honest, I'm one guy in a very busy call shop. So trying to post to everything is really hard. So most of the attention on a podcast for what I did was on YouTube. So I narrowed it down to, we're going to start this with just YouTube this year.
Well, and it's a good way to go about that because of, with the way, we talked about social media changing. TV's changed so much.
Yeah.
I know way more people that use YouTube TV and just watch YouTube videos. So it's easier to access.
And not to be controversial, but I'd like to see some more high quality content put on YouTube.
Yeah.
For the young guys that are getting information off of there for hunting.
100%.
So this is gonna go on YouTube. So I hate doing this, but I mean, the best thing you can do if you want to hear more of the content is like it, subscribe, and leave comments on either what you liked it, if you hated it, if you want to hear us talk about something. That is the best way to support it. So the more views the podcast gets on YouTube, the more likely it is I can get somebody that you want to hear come on the show. So it has to have listeners to get people to participate. So yeah. So the more support it gets, the better the guest I can get on.
Yeah. And I mean, something,
if we have guests.
To kind of circle around to that, to another topic that I know we're probably going to discuss probably as soon as the next episode is just this year, how it went for everybody.
Yeah,
duck numbers, and
everybody's super concerned about the ducks right now.
Yes, so that is.
I got a lot of varying opinions on that. You can probably tell that from my post on social if you go look.
Yeah,
but next week, this will be the first good podcast we release. But we're actually going to discuss, for lack of a better term, your weekend warrior waterfowlers and your diehard waterfowlers, and why both of them are equally important to the sport.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think enough emphasis gets put on the guy that gets to hunt a few times a year.
No.
And why he's as important as somebody that hunts a lot.
Yeah. So he needs to have the guy, like I said, that hunts 5-10 times a year. They need a resource too.
Yeah. And they're really important, and they do more than you think on conservation.
Yes.
So that will be next week's.
So is there anything else we need to
No, I
cover
think that's
on this,
it for tonight, Kyle.
On this little soft launch, this soft opening.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's going to be on YouTube. Like, subscribe, share. Send us opinions, only good ones, or questions, only good ones. We don't want to hear the negative. But no, I mean, anything and everything. Any thoughts, just reach out to us, and we will do our best to get it covered. So,
all right, boys. Talk to you later.
Y'all be good.
The Crit and Green Podcast by Duck Falls Hunting.